This week on LensVid Talk, Sony has a new flagship camera, GoPro 13 is out, will they get lucky this time? And Sirui puts autofocus on an anamorphic lens. Stick around.
Hello everybody, hello Lou.
Hey, Ido.
And today we're doing LensVid Talk number 27. So we have been away for quite a few months now. Actually, we came back from IBC.
I went into hibernation.
Yeah, and we had a lot of videos after IBC. So basically, LensVid Talk number 26 was recorded just prior to IBC. So I think either early September or even a little bit before that. So there have been a lot of gap, like a big gap between the previous one and this one. And I think that on the previous one, we even talked about like older products. So it's a huge gap. This is recorded on December. What's the exact date?
Oh, I don't know.
Mid of December. So that's, I'm not sure when it's going to be aired, but hopefully still in December. So that's December 2024. So we're doing LensVid Talk 27. So 26 again was a long time ago. Now let's start with some products that we have been reviewing recently. So the first one is on you, and that was the Orca rolling bag. The name was OR 14 or something like that?
OR 16.
16? Okay.
Yeah. I got mixed up because there's an OR 15 that's very, very similar, and another one that's kind of similar. There's just like different sizes.
Yeah, they're all OR something. Now, tell us a little bit about them. It's a rolling bag that you can also use as something like if you need to go upstairs or something. So you can use it as a backpack.
Yeah, it's got hidden zippered backpack straps that kind of vanish into the back of the pack and zip up, so they are concealed. And they're strong enough, you know, if you need to go up a long flight of stairs or go hiking on a trail for like a short distance, they're just comfortable enough to be able to do that easily.
You would probably not use it for like a long walk.
I tried going quite a distance with it, and eventually it starts to feel like, oh, maybe I could use better backpack straps. It's just not designed for large distance, but I found that every time I used it, it was comfortable.
Yeah. No, I think I played with it myself. It feels really great. It has some nice features like you have a USB connection that you can... Yep. If you have a power bank, you could put it in the bag and then use a cable to charge from the outside.
It's really great for the airport. I mean, I think that's what they had in mind. They were taking a bag they already had and just kind of shrinking it down so that it would fit the airline overhead baggage requirement, size requirements. So it's really kind of, that was the frame of reference that they had when they were redesigning this bag. And this USB thing is perfect. You know, you sit down, you don't want to open your bag and take stuff out. Boom, you're plugged in. A lot easier than, plugging it in at one of these stations and then walking off without your phone. So,
yeah. And by the way, I always suggest not to use airport USB-C sockets because they can have malware, which is like, it's nuts.
Wow.
There are solutions for that if you use your own specialized cable, which makes sure that there's no data going into your phone.
Right, it should just be power. I would have thought they were all just power, but I guess not.
People injecting all sorts of bad things into that, and you can never know. So be careful on that. So anyway, yeah, it's a pretty great bag.
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, for me, it was my first roller bag that I used for camera equipment. So that fact alone made it a breath of fresh air. But I could tell based on my experience with other roller bags, like regular luggage roller bags, that these wheels were really special because they're rollerblade wheels. They're tough. I took them everywhere. And at the end, I'm like wiping them down, getting them ready for some photographs. I'm like, wait, they're cleaning up beautifully. Like they're not even dented. There's no nicks in them, nothing. And I actually did take them on sort of like off-road on rocky trails just for a few minutes just to see how the bag would do in a pinch. And these wheels are top notch. The rest of the bag, I collided with walls and curbs really hard. Like I beat the crap out of this bag. And there's barely even, it's not even close to significant damage. It's just like there's like a tiny little nick, and I was really beating it.
And we use it on IBC. And IBC is a really good test because on IBC, you need to be really quick.
Right.
Because if you're not fast, then you're losing time on the show floor. And that's a big problem.
I had someone else point out to me that the wheels they don't rotate 360, and therefore, how nice can it be? But
I'm not familiar with any photography roller that has a 360.
There's probably a reason for that. I think that those wheels break down more. And I don't know how you're going to guarantee that when you hit a curb that you nicely roll up over the curb, because if the wheels spin, then they might actually shift and then you could bottom out. So I'm thinking that the fixed wheels is actually a better idea if you don't want to bottom out and destroy the bottom of the bag, which eventually will rip and open and your stuff won't be safe.
Yeah.
That's what happens with all the spinner bags.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great bag. I don't think that a lot of people know the Orca brand unless they're from the audio side of things, because Orca is known for their side bags for boom
premixers and stuff.
Yeah, audio people, but not so much for photographers or videographers. And now we had a video talking to them on the showroom floor in IBC, and they presented their new products, and part of them were bags. So
one of the things that I thought was really impressive about them was how much they focus on ergonomics.
Yeah.
So now they've got these kind of harnesses that look a lot like, I forgot what they're called, but for gimbals.
Yeah.
Full body, kind of like sits on your chest and over your shoulders. And it's for really, really heavy sound gear.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't put one on. I touched it. I didn't put one on, but it looked very well made and very nice and plush. So that it's something that I would not be afraid of wearing all day.
Their head designer is the same guy who was one of the head designers for, I don't know how many people remember because this was a long time ago, but for Kata and then Manfrotto. Oh. So yeah, it's the same guy. So they know what they're doing. Cool. For sure. So yeah, that's the Orca rolling bag. You can check out the full review with all the details. I think you've done a really cool job on this one. The second one is a review that I did recently, and it was on the Hollyland Pyro H wireless HDMI wireless system. It's great. It's basically, I think, like the third or fourth wireless HDMI that we have done a review on from Hollyland, because we've done on Axun and other companies reviews on wireless transmitters. It's good. It's relatively affordable. I mean, it's $300 and something, $80, something like that, I think, for a transmitter and receiver set. So it's not very expensive. The app is great. You can have you can stream into an app or a receiver. So you can have both or several apps or two transmitters. I don't remember.
So you can have somebody watching through their phone.
Yeah, exactly.
At the same time.
So let's say that we have something here. We're actually using it right now as we speak. We have 3 cameras, and each one of them is connected to a different Hollyland wireless transmitter going into. I'll maybe show it after that in a B-roll so people understand how this whole thing works. But it's kind of cool, and it's working fantastically well. We have 3 of them transmitting at the same time, and the frequencies don't overlap because it's all automatic. They know which frequency
They make room for each other.
Exactly. So
nice.
and if a frequency is occupied, they jump to a different frequency on their own, and it's working fine, and it's very, very close proximity. So that's pretty cool. The only thing I didn't really like about this was that I think that the buttons and switches are not amazing. They have a different version. I don't know if you looked on IBC. We were at the Hollyland booth and we talked to them a lot. They have a version of an SDI version of this. It's called Pyro S instead of H. H is HDMI, S is for SDI. And it's not just another SDI. It's a completely different unit. It's horizontal instead of vertical. It has a big color screen. It's more expensive. Mm-hmm. It has a big color screen. I'm not sure if it's a touch screen or just a color screen. and the buttons and switches are much better. So it has a lot of, like, if this is important for you, then definitely go for the SDI version, even if you don't need SDI.
Do you think there were bigger physical switches?
They're nicer. I'm not
Nicer.
sure. The
Okay.
screen is bigger. The screen on this one is super, super tiny.
Yeah.
Honestly, you don't need a screen.
Yeah.
If everything works fine, and 99% of the time it works fine, just turn it on. It does its thing, and it's completely automatic. It's plug and play. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. And even, again, we have 3 of them. They're all plug and play. You don't do anything. Just connect them, turn them on, and they work. It's fantastic. So, yeah, they're cool. Relatively inexpensive.
Where's the cost saving? How are they able to make this and offer it at a
Again,
significantly lower price?
everything is like, it's plastic. It's relatively, I wouldn't call it cheap, but, you
Right.
know, it's,
It's not as solid
yeah.
physically. Okay.
But for what we're doing here in the studio,
But
if you need
right.
to be on location working, you know,
Right.
hard, or you need, there is another thing which is not as good as it should be, and that's the lag.
Okay.
The wireless transmission range, I think we did a test together, was 400 meters. And it actually works at about 400, close to 400 meters, which is fantastic.
Right. That was right.
Yeah, and it has like connection to the computer, so if you want to stream directly from it without a card, it works. So that's a new thing. It does a lot of things good, very well at least. But one thing that it doesn't do very well is lag. So if you want to do like focus pulling, that's not the unit for you.
Right.
And I'm not sure that the SDI unit is much better. Maybe a little bit better, but not. I'm not sure if Holland, maybe they have the Cosmo line. We showed, I think, a prototype of the new Cosmo line that they're working on in IBC. Maybe the new one will have a much shorter like lag time, but I'm not sure. It's not out yet. So. Anyway, so that's the Hollyland Pyro H. Now let's start talking about news. We talked in length about the reviews. So these news, I want to mention something. These news have been collected over the past 2 months or something like that. So not all of them are like really recent news, but you know, we didn't cover them before, so we might as well do it now. So let's start with a very interesting camera, the Sony A1 Mark II. And again, it was announced a couple of weeks ago. I think that people have already been playing with it. And I know I have some mixed feelings about this camera. I have the A1. It's shooting you right now. And it's a great camera. My only real concern with this, at least with my specific unit, is that it overheats like crazy.
Oh, really?
Especially in overheats, and the battery drains like really, really quickly, especially in 4K, like shooting video, 4K when the HDMI is connected. And if you connect like wirelessly to an app, then it drains like nuts. And even in the studio where it's not really hot, it can overheat really quickly if you're shooting 100 or 120, like slow motion.
Yeah. Oh, definitely at those higher
Horrible,
frame rates.
horrible,
But is
horrible.
it overheating at a normal frame rate?
It's nuts.
Also?
Yeah, but slower.
Gotcha.
But in slow motion, horrible.
Right,
And we use it a lot for slow motion. I'm thinking that at some point we'll have to buy like an FX3 or FX3 Mark II or whatever for slow motion, because it has an internal fan and this one doesn't. So,
Right.
yeah.
What resolution is the A1 shooting slow-mo at? Is it
4K.
okay?
You
not-
can shoot in 1080p, but you know.
It's not
usually-
shooting it in 8K though. That
No.
That would definitely
8K
overheat.
is 30p.
Okay.
30p.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't have 24 for some reason. Let's get back to the A1 Mark II. So it basically, the sensor is the same. The frame rate, I think both in stills, I'm not sure about video. I think it's about the same in video, but in stills it's exactly the same at 30 FPS. It has a bigger buffer, but I never found it to be a real problem. It has a new monitor like the A7R5, which is like the tilting and side, and which is cool. I really like this monitor, and the AI chip, which, you know, if it didn't bring that, then you know, what are we talking about? the body is exactly like I'm not sure if exactly, but very similar to the A9. So the grip is better, and it's a little different. The EVF is the same in terms of resolution, but I think it goes up to 240 frames per second all the time. So It's the refresh rate is a little bit better. The IBIS stabilization basically is better. I think it's 8 or 8.5 stops, so it's definitely higher than it was. And there are a lot of software changes. I think the pre-capture is one of the biggest changes. There are a few others.
That's one of the few ones that sort of spoke to me.
Yeah,
because
me too.
Or really any photographer can probably relate to hitting the shutter release and then realizing there's no way I could have pressed that in time. You know, a bird is flapping their wings or something happens and you're trying to capture it. So this could really change photography.
Yeah, they're not the first company to do this, and this is not the first Sony camera to do this.
Oh, okay.
As far as I know, the A9 Mark III has this, and I'm not sure, but I think they had something to. They were talking about a firmware update to the A7 IV to bring this, but it always sounded strange to me. So I'm not sure if I read it and was a mistake or I don't know. But
another one of those rumors.
I know. But if it is, if you know something about this, write to us in the comments.
Well, now with an A7R5 possibly coming out in the not so distant future, if that
it makes more sense,
is available, it's going to be there.
Who knows? With Sony, everything is possible. So, yeah. But look, my point is this. There is nothing about this camera which is a new technology. Maybe the IBIS, but like...
How is the AI chip not new technology?
It's not new technology. The AI chip has been in existence since the A7R5.
That exact chip or that type of technology you're saying?
I can't tell. But the point is this. They didn't... It's like the A1 series is supposed to be the top of the line like camera, which brings like... It has to be good at everything. Mm-hmm. And you were supposed to assume, or I at least assume, that they will bring their best technology into this camera and their newest technology. And if you look at their entire line, this camera doesn't, the A1 Mark II, doesn't bring any new technology. Like it has new technology that is already existent in the A9 Mark III or the A7R5 or stuff that has already been in the A1 before.
Right.
There are some maybe software improvements, but in terms of like hardware, the monitor again exists on other cameras. Maybe the EVF with the 240, but these are like tiny things. Right. It's not like
something more fundamental.
I would assume that they will bring like really revolutionary technologies into this camera, and no, there aren't. So, I know what to think about it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it's a bad camera. It doesn't mean that people are not going to buy this. It's not what I expected. As an A1 user, again, I'm using the A1. I don't have any plans to replace it. Unless somebody will buy mine and the difference will be very small, which I don't think.
The guy in the video that you shared with me who was talking about the features that he liked, which were not emphasized very much at the presentation, he talked about voice memos. And although I've never used that or even thought of using it, his description of it was interesting because to be able to press a button and say a few words that you want saved as keywords in the metadata could help with filing, organizing those pictures later on. If you think of that in terms of a batch processing, it can make certain people's workflows a lot easier.
There are a lot of life improvements, and how do you call them?
Quality
of life improvements in this camera. Voice memo is nothing new in the photo industry, by the way. Nikon had them like
attaching it to metadata.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure if attached to the metadata, but at least 10 years ago, at least maybe more, in their higher end cameras. I'm not sure if the A1 has this. I never play with this particular feature. If you know something, write to us in the comments. But yeah, it's nice. Again, as you said, there are a lot of quality of life sort of changes in this camera, but nothing truly revolutionary in terms of like basic technology. It's like I know. I was expecting like a new chip with a new sensor, global shutter, a new sensor with like 240 frames per second in 4K and maybe, I don't know, 120 in 8K, something like this. Nothing, you know. So I know. So that's the A1. With the A1, Sony also announced a 28 to 70 f2 lens.
Right.
So, well,
It's a giant. It reminds me of my Tamron 35 to 150 in terms of the size. It's really not a walk around lens.
No. It's big and heavy. Look, Canon has their own version of this lens, or had, or still have, whatever.
And it's even heavier.
It's much heavier,
Right.
exactly. So they have their own version, and it's heavy. This one is not as heavy. It's less than 1 kilogram.
Yeah.
Still heavy, still big.
Right.
Still very, very expensive. You're talking about a $3,000 lens, and it's a 28, not 24. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, yeah, it's cool. It's a great lens. Would I buy it over a 24 to like the second generation 24 to 70 or even the new Sigma or whatever? I don't know.
My theory on why they did not include 24 to 28 in the range is because then a barrel would have extended much further, making the lens less easy to use on gimbals. As it stands, the guy in the video that I watched was able to balance it on a gimbal. It only extends a little bit. If you add those extra 4, it probably would now have to extend a lot.
It extends, like when you change the focal length, like your 24 to 7.
We'll check, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It will definitely be heavier, bigger, and more expensive.
Right.
So,
and it's already at the limit. Like you don't
Yeah.
want it to be heavier. You don't want it to be much longer. Like it's
and more expensive will mean that even less people will buy it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's I think it's $29, almost $3,000. So whatever. But it's a very expensive lens. Let's talk some cameras. And GoPro had a few months ago already the Hero 13. So I wrote some of the changes that they introduced in this one. So there is a new battery, integrated GPS. They have the lens modules. Did you see that?
I saw it. It's interesting. It's suddenly now an interchangeable lens camera instead of a action camera.
Exactly. So you don't have a lot
Sort
of
of.
lenses. Yeah, you have a macro, you have a ultra wide, and I'm not sure if anything.
And they
else.
do look reasonably easy to attach to put on in the field. Like they're not. It's not like where you have to be super careful.
No, so it's similar to
kinda jam it
regular
in, yeah.
cameras. What I liked is
easier than that. Yeah.
What I liked, and I really like to see maybe some option for this in actual like mirrorless cameras, is they have an option that tells the user which ND to use in a particular
This
situation.
is what I liked about this. Yeah.
And this is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that mirrorless cameras can do this as well. They have like the meter, the light meter,
Yep.
and they can tell you, it's not a very difficult calculation to make.
Right.
So it can tell you need to correct using this or that ND filter, and you use it. Why not?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. So Sony, Canon, whoever, Nikon, you can think about this.
If they get that with drones also, that would be really handy, except that you still got to bring the drone back down out of the sky to change the filter.
Yeah.
You got to wait till it's up there to get the correct light measurement. But
Yeah. Again, maybe
anything to save my frustration with filters.
Yeah. It's still $400 like the previous one. So yeah, that's
I like the that they now have 2 variations on a super wide angle view. One is super view and the other one is hyper view. So hyper view is just a little bit more stretched out wide, just by a little bit extra, but that little bit extra, if you're on a bicycle and you want that kind of sensation of all this stuff going past you and all this motion blur, it kind of emphasizes that even more. So it's kind of cool, like if you're moving fast on a vehicle, on a bike, on a motorcycle, something like that. But you can see that it does actually compress the center a little bit more as a result. Like there's just more stuffed into the frame. but it gives you options. So like someone who's vlogging now has a couple of different options on how actually wide they want to go, how much they want to include of the background, and how distorted do they want their face to be. So I thought that was kind of nice.
So that was the first one. The second one was what? You said that there was hyper.
There's super view and hyper view.
Oh, okay.
So that's just the difference between the
okay.
two wide angles. But the other feature that I really liked are these burst modes, which again, just like you said with the other feature, why can't they just have this on mirrorless cameras? Why can't they just do burst mode on mirrorless cameras? Because I think the issue with some of these higher
You're talking about burst mode in stills?
No, sorry. They're doing a burst mode. It's called burst slow-mo.
Okay.
So it's slow-mo, but it's just for a few seconds.
Okay.
So instead of having to create all this like chip architecture to sustain doing 120 frames per second or 240 frames per second, I think they go up to 480 with this one, but for only like 5 seconds. But how much longer do you need it? Like slow-mo, you usually don't need more than a few seconds, usually. So I'm thinking, like, if you could squeeze that out of a pre-existing chipset that you have, which I think is what they're doing here. They're using, everything is the same from the previous model as far as I could tell. I think it's the same
sensor.
Yeah, same sensor.
Yeah.
And I think they're using the same chip, but I could be wrong. But in either case, this sounds like something that can be done with firmware. And I mean, I think it would be great to have 5 seconds of 240. Oh my gosh, that would be great. Even if I only had it in 1080p, that's fine.
I think that the A1 can shoot 240
Yes.
in 1080p, but
Right.
yeah, that's the A1.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, not a $400 camera exactly. So let's move over to another camera and another action camera, basically. So
Oh wait, one more
yeah.
cool thing about the GoPro, which I think is probably one of the biggest pieces of news, is that they said it's crashing less often now. This is over the course of the last couple models, but they made one more big improvement with the stability of the operating system or something. With this 13, they now are saying they're really proud of how much, like something like 75 to 99% of the crashes have been resolved.
we have the 10.
Some
we have
huge
the GoPro
percentage.
10. We use it a lot for like behind the scenes shooting. It's fine. I mean, I don't use it that much. I just use it for like short clips, but you know, it's working fine. I don't remember it
Take it
crashing.
on a long bike ride. That's the test. You take it on like an hour or half an hour. The extent of the battery, like run the battery
the
down
battery dies
pretty
very
quick.
quickly.
So I would say a fair test for any action cam is it should be able to go through until the end of its battery without, for some reason, freezing, shutting down. So that's good that they got that in order, because I am starting to think of buying a new action cam to replace my Insta360, which is getting old now.
All right.
Yeah.
So maybe the next one will be relevant. So DJI released, I think, a couple of very shortly
Speaking of
after
which.
the GoPro had made their own announcement. So they had the Osmo Action 15 Pro.
Right.
And I read some comments on this. I'll mention what was improved, but one thing that wasn't improved and actually went back is the bitrate. So I think on this one is 100 and the previous one was 130 or something like that.
Interesting.
So it's not just they didn't improve the bitrate, it actually went down.
Huh.
And so the image quality is not as good as, you know, in terms of like at least the bitrate as it could be. So what was improved? So they improved the sensor, although I'm not sure if the sensor is like significantly different. It's like, I don't know exactly at what respect. It has a much higher resolution in stills. So if this interests you in some way, it's 40 megapixel versus 10. So again, but usually people don't use it that much for stills. It has a longer battery. We talked about battery. It has an OLED screen instead of the LCD that the previous one had. And it has 47 gigs of internal memory, which is always
pretty
good.
cool, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've forgotten my SD card a few times.
The previous one didn't have one. So that's it, I think. I'm not sure about the pricing, but
10-bit color in
Yeah.
normal profile, not just log. That's pretty cool.
okay.
Yeah. That's the thing that's kind of interesting. So they lowered the bit rate, but now you have 10-bit color. So where did they squeeze that in? It'd be interesting to do some side by side because of that. I don't know how waterproof the last one was, but this one goes down to 65 feet. That's pretty impressive with no case. Like I take my Insta360 and it goes in a case. It's also supposedly can handle being submerged, but not so far. So I don't take it that far. 65 feet is awesome. And 13 and a half stops of dynamic range for an action camera.
Yeah, this is what
good.
they're saying, you know, and you need to see actual reviews, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro. Again, I'm not sure the Pro is for, but it is. Talking about DJI, they have another new product that I think was even announced before that one. And we actually saw it in IBC. I didn't really look into it, but you actually went to look.
The Neo?
The Neo,
Yeah,
exactly. So a new tiny drone, relatively new tiny drone. I think it's like under $200, so like really inexpensive.
Amazing.
Yeah,
It's an amazing price.
and it's a 4K 30p, but still 4K.
Right.
What else? They have 22. We talked about internal memory, so it has 22 gigs of internal memory.
That's a good amount for such a tiny little
Yeah, it's
drone.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, the size doesn't matter. It's the bit rate or whatever in 4K, whatever.
Of
So,
course.
yeah.
But I mean, you cannot put a micro SD. It does not have a slot
so
at
this is
all.
what it
That's why it has that much
Yeah.
memory.
Okay, and it works with the mic, the DJI Mic 2.
Right.
So this is really cool
Yeah.
because you can, if you want to do like a drone shot of you standing somewhere and talking to the audience about something. Let's say a vlog where
You can vlog with this thing.
Yeah, you're at the top of a mountain and you're a hiking vlogger or something like wildlife or whatever.
Although be careful at the top of mountain because it can get windy up there, and this drone is not extremely stable in the wind. It's very small, so
a
low wind days.
No, or at least a low mountain.
Lower elevation, yeah.
Yeah. No, but again, it's cool. I like this capability. The fact that you can speak to it. In general, it would be nice to see cameras with like wireless mic connection built in. Although, maybe we'll eventually see an actual. There have been talks about this, like DJI coming up with an actual mirrorless camera. I expect this in 2025, to be honest. Yeah. And that will definitely have built-in mic connection.
I was going to say, if anyone's going to come up with a camera that will have a full-frame camera, not a cinema camera, but just a regular full-frame camera that's going to have built-in NDs and image stabilization, they would probably try that.
I was actually thinking about 32-bit float built in
as well.
Yeah, because that
the
will
whole
be
kit and caboodle.
No, think about it. If you have
We're
like
point.
connecting to the DJI Mic 2, which has 32-bit float, no camera, as far as I know, has 32-bit float internally.
Right.
So if you want the 32-bit float, you can only rely on the 32-bit float from the mic recording into itself.
Right.
So that's cool.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the DJI Neo drone. Again, under $200 or something like that. Really cool. Is like an impulse buy.
It's a little bit of a cine whoop too. I don't think the blades are actually exposed, so if
Yeah.
it bumps into something, it's not going to get destroyed.
It's
like
for beginners and
exactly.
but still, if you just need a drone shot here and there, or again for vlogging and stuff like that,
or you need something that can pack really,
really small.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Neo drone. Let's talk about lenses. And Cooke added again a few months ago another member to their tiny. It's called the SP3 series. And I'm not sure if we looked at them in IBC. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but I think that they were announced around the previous IBC, and the SP3 is like their small mirrorless line. I think only for Sony E-mount. I'm not sure, but they now added
It's Sony E-mount out of the box, but then I think it has a kit.
Oh, really? For RF or whatever.
For something else, maybe Nikon. I can't
Nikon
remember
Z
what was the
or
other
RF.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Anyway, so regardless, they have the 25, 32, 50, 75, and 100. So this is the focal length that they had until now, and now they added the 18 millimeter 2.4. They're fantastic if you like the Cooke look, which is a little bit softer.
Well, I was going to ask you that this is, I'm showing my lack of experience here, but now everyone is putting black mist filters on their very, very sharp lenses to create a cinematic look. Does a Cooke sort of, is what it's known for having a lens where you don't have to put a black mist filter on it to get that nice soft texture?
For the money, I would go with the black mist, but
Right.
we'll discuss the price of this in a second. But I'm not sure. I didn't do a side-by-side
Yeah.
to show like whatever, a Sigma or a Sony lens with a black
But
mist.
it has the look built in instead of having to put a whole bunch of stuff onto a regular.
I would be surprised if it's that simple. If it's like just it's a regular lens with a black mist built in. It's not. It's
Well, there are definitely other features. I'm just saying in terms of diffusion of sort of highlights or
I wouldn't be able to tell you because I didn't try it.
Gotcha.
And it's not just that I didn't try it. To truly answer your question, you need to A/B test this versus any other like native lens, which
Right.
is not does not have this, which is more clinical looking
Right.
with a mist filter
Yeah.
or whatever filter, and see the
that'd be an
differences.
interesting test.
Yeah, I agree. Talking about test, this lens costs like the other ones in the series $5K. So Each.
Wow.
Yeah. No, again, you have to look at this. If we're coming in from Sony, Sigma, whatever lenses, then that's a ton of money.
Yeah.
If you're coming in from cinema Cooke lenses from the previous series, like the other like cinema series, the bigger ones
Right.
that they have,
Sure.
which costs, I don't know, 10, 20 grand,
Right.
then that's not a lot of money. So, it
I'm
depends.
just trying to imagine who spends this money. Is it when you are already using Cooke lenses on a production and now you need to use a small camera for
Possibly.
a specific scene and you want to
Possibly.
keep that similar look?
Or people who want to produce a film or whatever, indie film or whatever, on a nice quality
Yeah.
lens, and they rent them. You don't
Right.
have to buy them.
Right.
Remember, they're in rental houses. You can rent them. Not without spending $5K, hopefully. So yeah, so that's it's pretty compact. The only thing that I wrote down is that it has a 25 centimeter minimum focus distance, for what it's worth. So that's the 18 millimeter T2.4 Cooke SP3 lens. SmallRig has their, I think, first wireless microphone. It's called the S60. Did you see that?
Just in time because my small, very small microphone is busted, so I think I need a new one.
Okay. So I don't know what to say about this. We didn't test it. The closest one that I would think in terms of like at least the look is the Lark M2 that we have tested. I think Art tested last year or something like that. They're very, very inexpensive. It costs like $90. And the nice thing is that they're 24-bit instead of 16-bit.
Almost all the very small ones are 16-bit, so
Yeah.
that's
So
really good.
that's pretty cool. So again, $90. Yeah, it's designed for smartphones. So it's not, I think, primarily for cameras. I'm not even sure if you can connect it to a camera. So, but if you need a small mic for your smartphone,
That makes sense. People who are using cell phones want everything else to be small as well.
yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. Talking about SmallRig, they have a new matte box, which, to be honest, I sent you the link. We have tested the SmallRig matte box, the first one, back in when was it? 2022.
Was that the Star Trail? Was that when it was called the Star Trail?
I honestly don't remember. I didn't do the
Yeah.
review. Art did. It was okay. It's a pretty basic matte box. I don't remember if he had any specific issues. I think it's kind of limited in a lot of respects. But again, if you need
I think he
something basic,
mentions that if you put on a second filter,
Yeah.
then it gets a little bit heavy, and he was concerned about how that was going to hold up on
Okay. Interesting. I don't remember that, but it was a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. I know what's different about this. Again, if you know, hit us in the comments. This one costs no, I didn't write. I'll write it on the screen how much it cost. I think about the same, $170 if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. So that's that, but I'm not sure what's different. Rode has something new. So this is something that I personally been waiting for such a long time.
Yeah.
It's the Rode Videocaster.
Right.
So they have the Rodecaster, which is basically like an XLR unit that you can have up to in the Rodecaster Pro 2, I think, which I have. You can connect up to 4 XLR inputs, but it doesn't have any HDMIs. So
Right.
I was looking for, we are shooting here like a podcast. This is the LensVid Talk, and we also shoot some commercial podcasts. And the whole thing is kind of complicated. You know, if you want to, even if you're not streaming, to have one device that does both the HDMI and the XLR for more than, one mic, 2, 3, 4 microphones, it's a complicated setup. And it takes us, every time that we're doing this, it takes us, like half an hour at least to set everything up. Having something that can do everything very quickly and very easily, that's great. And that's, I think, one of the first ones, especially the affordable. We'll talk about how affordable it is. That has both XLR and HDMI, like 4 XLRs and 4 HDMIs, I think. Built in, like going into the unit. But and they eventually released it. We knew that it's coming at some point, but I didn't know if they will be the first or Blackmagic will be the first, because Blackmagic have the ATEM Mini series, which only have XLRs and not HDMI. Or the other
Only
way,
have
right?
HDMI, not
yeah,
XLR,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. So I didn't know if Rode will be the first or Blackmagic will be the first from each direction. So Rode started with XLRs and Blackmagic started with HDMI. So who will make the jump to both?
But it was obvious that this is where we were headed.
Yeah,
Even from the beginning,
For
it
sure.
was like, why not also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. So there are some important limitations. I've watched some videos about this. I talked to Rode, and I read some user reviews, which I think are even more important than like regular reviews, because a lot of the reviews were like the first ones where people get the product from the company, and I don't know how much you can always trust these. For several, we discussed
also,
that.
sometimes you need time.
Exactly.
You need time for the
It's
problems
not just
to happen.
being honest. It's actually, and this device is really, really, really complicated. And this is the first thing that a lot of people are saying. Setting it up, the learning curve is like really steep. Like even compared to a few other like Rode products, like again, the Rodecaster is also like a pretty sophisticated device, but it's not very complex to operate, at least on the basic level. This one, it has so many options. Learning everything is like...
When you think of the number of options compared to the number of buttons and how many options are built into each button, and
it doesn't have a monitor at all. No, it has a small one. It's much smaller than so it has all sorts of like...
But you're using a software program that kind of represents everything that you're doing up on a screen.
Yeah, but you're supposed to be able to also use it without a computer, if you like.
Right.
But that's a bit of a stretch. I would probably use it with a computer. And it's only 1080p, which a lot of people found not ideal. Honestly, for shooting podcasting 4K is think about it. We're shooting 3 cameras, so 3 cameras 4K.
Yeah.
That will have to be a very important podcast to necessitate the amount of storage that we're talking.
The ATEMs are still only 1080, right? Or are they also
I don't remember. Honestly, I don't have them. So
I know the original ones did 1080
1080p.
only.
Okay.
I don't think they've gotten up to 4K either.
I don't know. So it is what it is. I'm not sure, for example, how advanced the ability to like to integrate with Premiere or DaVinci is, which would have been nice because it has a feature which I really like, which is basically the ability to switch between, let's say that I'm talking and then you're talking, it will switch automatically to you based on the audio. So that's cool,
Right.
really cool.
Yeah.
I'm doing this with software, where it's a software that I pay for in Premiere like $30 every month, which is a lot of money.
Wow.
Yeah, so this would be cool if I can stop this and use that. But is it that reliable? Maybe, I don't know. And how does it work with, because if you're, I don't know, there are a lot of questions. We'll see if we'll have a chance to use it at some point.
I didn't see anywhere ISO recordings mentioned. So
I've seen people talking about this, but I'm not sure what the bottom line was about this. Is it working, not working, issues with it? I don't remember. So yeah, that's important. I know. So that's the Rode Videocaster. It's $1,200. So again, it depends on what you're comparing it to. Are there cheaper options? Yeah. Are there cheaper integrated options with video and for video and photo? I'm not sure.
one interesting observation was made by Tom Buck, who said that this Rode Videocaster has better sound inputs than the ATEMs. The preamps in this Videocaster are better quality, so when you have some sound coming into it, it just sounds better.
Wait a second.
Then the ATEM.
Then the ATEM? The ATEM, of course. The ATEM is not designed for audio at all.
Correct.
Oh, of
but
course.
well, it does have an auxiliary plug where you can have,
But only
sound coming in.
3.5 millimeter
Right.
and not XLRs. Yeah,
Correct,
of course.
correct.
That's the biggest problem.
Right, but in addition to that, there are better preamps. So
Yeah, for sure. That's what Rode is known
right.
for.
So in that sense, the quality of your recording is now better than it would be in an ATEM.
For sure.
Do you have the usability, the user interface, as many options? I don't know, but
using the ATEM with just 3.5 millimeter is, unless you're just recording one person,
right.
yeah, no.
Maybe that's just for syncing, and they're doing their sound separately.
Yeah,
in many
usually.
cases.
Yeah, you're recording with a separate recorder or somehow looped into somehow. I don't know. Again, I didn't have this workflow, so I can't comment. But so that's the Rode Videocaster. If we will have a chance to test it, we'll definitely let you know. Two last ones, two lenses actually. Tamron has a new 90mm macro lens.
I've been wanting the Sony for quite some time, and
Sony is very old now. By
yeah,
the way.
and you
Very
have that,
old.
and that's the reason why I've delayed, because it's like I don't want to buy something and then have them come out, update it like the next day. This is an alternative now. Like maybe I could take this instead. But keep
It doesn't
going. What
have
do you
image
think?
stabilization,
Right.
which I'm not sure if you care about it or not, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's less expensive. There is also a Z mount version. So it's an E and Z mount version. What else? It's very sharp, but it's not surprising. Most macro lenses are very, very sharp. So yeah, it's a 90mm f2.8 macro. I'm always surprised that nobody is coming up with like much smaller macro lenses which are f5.6, because if you're actually shooting macro,
Right, you don't need those.
I will be okay with an f8 lens, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, that's the.
If it's like super, super sharp and much smaller and less expensive.
What's the name of that one brand? Mitocon.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right, and it does like 5 times reproduction.
There are a few of those.
Those
not
definitely.
just them.
I believe that one and others like it start at like 5.6.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're much cheaper. So I agree. I think it would be interesting to see.
I'm thinking that these lenses are not designed just for macro. They're
Right.
also designed for like regular shooting, and
Yeah.
then f2.8 is good.
Right.
But yeah, if you're designing a macro lens, do an f5.6, f8. That's fine.
The clutch focus, is that what it's called? Focus clutch.
That's the only on the
That's
Sony.
on the Sony.
Yeah.
As someone who uses that, and you said you like that feature.
Yeah.
Right, makes it very easy to use.
Yeah.
Do you think you'd miss it on the Tamron? Think it would make a big difference?
No,
Right.
to be honest.
When I tried it, I really liked it. Like it
Yeah.
made the experience kind of fun or easy.
In theory, it would be nicer to use it for full focus uses, because then you have hard stops, and that's the only Sony lens that I know of that has hard stops. The Sony 90 in manual focus. On autofocus mode, it spins and spins and spins, but on manual focus, it's physically stopping, and we have like a follow focus ring on it, and we use it for like macro manual cine shooting, like with full focus gear basically, or unit. The last one is a Sirui, a really interesting lens. It's a Sirui 40 millimeter anamorphic lens with autofocus. And it's up on Indiegogo. It's already raised $360,000.
And it's Super 35.
Yeah.
So does that mean
it's very similar? Again,
to
I'm
the
not sure.
Blazars?
Exactly.
Right.
We
Which
saw-
were also
Yeah.
APS-C, right?
Exactly. So in IBC, we have seen for the first time, I think, the Blazar 35 and 50 millimeter. What's their name? Apex.
Yeah. Okay.
Apex, or Apex anamorphic Super 35 autofocus lenses. I've talked to Blazar. Hopefully, we'll get at least one of those lenses early next year. I'm not sure. I've already seen some reviews. They're very positive. I'm talking about the Blazar, not the the Sirui. I haven't seen reviews. Maybe they are already. I'm not sure. But it's nice to see more of these lenses like coming to the market. And again, both of them are Super 35, so I'm still waiting for full frame lenses, like autofocus lenses, to come. I'm not sure what's the limitation here, but yeah, it's nice to see them, having something like this coming, and more competition is always good. So
if I had an FX30, I might try this.
Yeah.
When they come out with the full frame version, I'm definitely going to want to try it.
Again, it will be
fun.
interesting to see how much of a vignette does it have on a full frame. Because if it's not a lot, maybe you can crop in a little bit on a full frame.
Yeah, have some
I think
fun
that
with
with the Apex, you can sort of do it with at least one of them. But again, if we get it, we'll definitely do this test. So yeah, I think that's everything that we have for LensVid Talk 27. Thank you, Lou.
You're welcome.
And for all of you, don't forget to subscribe to LensVid Talk and to LensVid in general. We'll have a lot more reviews coming up soon, hopefully. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.